Planet of the Apes is known as a classic science fiction film. It's directed by Franklin J. Schaffner, who would go on to direct Patton 2 years later, a film that picked up many Oscars, including Best Picture. The film is written by Michael Wilson and Rod Serling, based on a book by Pierre Boulet. It stars Charlton Heston, Roddy McDowall, and Kim Hunter. It focuses around a few pilots who are making their way back to Earth, but when they expect to get there, apparently it's a bit of an interstellar kind of thing. If you think about the Christopher Nolan film and the loss of time in that, to them it's been like a few years. On Earth it's been, well, a lot longer, let's just say that. On their way, their ship makes a bit of a detour, crash lands on a planet that is overrun by apes that walk and talk like human beings, whereas the humans that are on this planet kind of don't talk at all, and they are treated like savages, treated like animals by the apes. The main character of Taylor, played by Charlton Heston, is captured and imprisoned, and it kind of kicks up a bit of a storm amongst this ape community, which leads to something of a trial that kind of puts things like evolution and creation, religion versus science at the forefront of this movie for discussion. I've got to say, this film to me kind of feels like one of them you had to be there moments. I did not like this as much as most people. Like I say, this is highly regarded as a classic. You know, it's got the famous ending, which this is hardly a spoiler if you don't know the ending to this by now. You know, Charlton Heston's character comes face to face with the Statue of Liberty and realises that actually he's been home this whole time. His ship wasn't diverted, it didn't crash land on a foreign planet, he's back on Earth where thousands of years later the apes have evolved and humanity has essentially devolved. It's hard to review this film with the kind of context that people back in the 60s would have had going into it. Looking at it now, it's very hard to understand how people did not see that twist end coming, because it is blatantly signposted from start to finish. It feels so obvious to me. But like I say, how do I judge that? Because I know the ending. I knew it before I went into this film. I'm also not overly fond of the film's attempt to push the idea of evolution down our throats. It feels very religious in that respect. It feels like it was obviously written by people who are kind of down with religion, down with faith, and up with science, up with all that kind of stuff. It feels very much like a propaganda piece in that regard. It kind of almost says that the two have to be separated and that there's no place in which the two can meet. The tactics it uses to present these arguments to me feel very condescending, because you're kind of using a reverse psychology thing in which you're relating how we are to apes now, but twisting it and saying, well, what if apes were like that with us? Fact is, apes aren't like that with us. So it's a bit of a sneaky, underhanded way of going about it. To me, that's just the way I feel about it, and as a result, like I say, feels very condescending. I'm not against discussions about faith, creation versus evolution and science and all that stuff. I just think there are films that have done it much better. Maybe not back then, and I can understand that, you know, the world as it was when this film came out, this was probably a bit more edgy, probably a bit more racy, coming out and dealing with this stuff, talking about this stuff. I just think it can be done a lot better. I think this discussion can be had in a way that doesn't kind of tell one side that they're idiots, wrong, or fanatics, but actually kind of gets to grips with the central themes of both arguments. What about other elements of the film? I think by today's standards, obviously, it's going to look cheap. It's going to look like special effects don't quite measure up. But thinking about when this was made, going back to 1968, some of the work on the apes, on the faces, is absolutely incredible. And when they speak, their mouths are moving in such a way that it looks like they are saying what they're saying. You know what I mean? If you get up close, still a few ropey bits, but given the time span, given when this was made, gotta say, those effects still hold up. One thing I don't like about the apes, however, is that they primarily walk just like humans. Like, there's no attempt there to kind of make all of these apes walk still like apes, you know, and that's one of the things I love about the new versions. You know, the recent Planet of the Apes films, they are still apes. They move like apes. Andy Serkis, the work he did in that film to make these things walk and move like apes was incredible. And that wouldn't be so bad, like I say, if it wasn't for the fact that actually there are a couple of moments in the film when a few of them do make some kind of attempt to do so. Like there's one moment when this prison guard, he's walking and he has this kind of weird shuffle, and you get the sense that he's trying to walk like an ape. He's trying to inject some of that into his performance. But because it comes out of nowhere when you've got the rest of them all walking like humans, it looks out of place. And it also looks like he's just done an accident in his pants, quite frankly, because he doesn't commit to it in the way that, as I say, someone like Andy Serkis does. The film is very talky as well, I must say. I expected there to be a lot more action in this. Again, like I say, this could be my opinion being completely affected by the recent Apes movies. But this is pure sci-fi. This is about ideas. It's about putting ideas on the table and discussing them, or it should be about discussing them. But I personally don't feel like the ideas are being discussed so much as crammed down our throats, which was my main complaint with it. But yeah, as a result, it feels quite slow at times, and I started to get a bit bored in places. The central concept is still a very good one, though. You know, the idea of this guy coming back to this planet, finding it overrun with apes, and just, yeah, how you deal with that, how the relationships form, I still enjoy. You know, and it's a very good social commentary, a warning, if you will, about where our future is heading if we keep messing around with nuclear arms and you know, just attacking each other, war, famine, all that kind of stuff. The way that human beings treat each other. And that's really one of the other main themes that I can get on board with. One of the things that the film discusses that I think is worth discussing is this notion that actually we need to treat ourselves better. We need to act more appropriately with each other if we don't want to see our planet disappearing down the drain. Ultimately, if I put myself into the perspective of someone living at the time this film came out, I think I could probably appreciate it more. But that's very hard to do, because I never did live in the 60s, you know, I live now, and I've been brought up on the more recent movies we've had. So yeah, as a result, given this film's status, it did feel a bit disappointing. I would still say it's a good film and it's worth checking out, but I don't think it quite deserves the classic kind of status that it has garnered. I give it a 3 out of 5. What about you? How do you feel about this film? Do you think I'm smoking crack or what? Comment below, let me know, and until next time, crack in.